Yevamos Daf contains two Mishnayos. From the beginning of the Daf until the first Mishnah, the Gemara is going to try to paskin a machlokes between Rebbe and Rav, and then use our Mishnah to help decide a question in halacha which was raised. Then we get to our first Mishnah, which discusses when somebody helped a woman be free of her husband by saying or testifying that her husband had died. The Gemara discusses whether or not that person is allowed to marry her. And then the second Mishnah will discuss if a chacham gave a heter for a woman to remarry, in what circumstances is he himself allowed to remarry her, and in what circumstances does that look suspicious. So let's begin. The Gemara has discussed a machlokes between Rebbe and Rav as to what are grounds for the Beis Din to force a man to divorce his wife. Rav said it has to be that there are witnesses that she was mezana, that she was unfaithful to him, and Rebbe had said even if there is only strong suspicion, such as evidence and pervasive rumors, that's enough, even if you don't have any witnesses. So the Gemara says the halacha is like Rav, the Gemara says again the halacha is like Rebbe. The Gemara asks, obviously, that's two contradictory halachos. The Gemara says it's not contradictory. There's two types of rumors. There are rumors which are persistent and rumors which are not persistent. Rumors which stop. Rumors which stop are not enough to force the man to divorce his wife unless you have witnesses that back up the rumors. And even if they stop, the witnesses back it up, that's enough. Rumors which don't stop, they're persistent and they continue, that's enough. Says the Gemara, therefore you have either of these two factors are enough for the Beis Din to force a man to divorce his wife, either persistent rumors or witnesses. Says the Gemara, what do you define as persistent rumors? How long does it have to go for? The Gemara says that Abaye said that his adoptive mother told him that in a city where there are suspicions, a day and a half, where it does not stop, it's not interrupted during that day and a half, or even if it's interrupted, but it's interrupted because the people were afraid of the person that the rumors were about, that all counts as rumors that don't stop, and that's called persistent rumors. The Gemara says, unless the person that is the subject of the rumors has enemies that are well known, then it could be that those enemies are the ones who started the rumors to try to get at him, but not necessarily can you trust those rumors. Okay, now the Gemara goes to a different discussion. We have a Mishnah that says that there are two potential reasons that a man might divorce his wife that would make it impossible and also for him to take her back. And that's if he divorces her either because of suspicions about her or because of a neder that she made. Like, for example, if she swore that she's not having any enough from him, or she swore that he can't have any enough from her, and he wasn't made for the neder. These two things, he cannot take her back if he divorces her for this reason. The reason is they're afraid that he may change his mind. He may decide that the rumors aren't good, and he may decide that the vow could be annulled. He may realize he could have brought the vow to a chacham to get rid of that vow. And that would mean that if he was allowed to take her back, then he would do those two things once he regrets having divorced her, and that would cancel her divorce retroactively. If he cancels her divorce retroactively and shows that he didn't really mean it, then if she had married someone else and had children in the meantime, those kids would be mamzerim. Therefore, we tell him, if this is your reason, if you're divorcing her because of this vow, or you're divorcing her because of these rumors, know that this cannot be reversed. You cannot remarry her, and you cannot be mischared. You cannot say you regret it. It's non-reversible, and therefore you better decide this is really what you want. Once that's the case, then we know that she can go marry someone else because it cannot be taken back. So the Gemara says, what happens if he violates the rules and he does go and he takes her back against our will? Is it count? Is he allowed to stay married to her, or do we force him to divorce her? So the Gemara says, well, you could potentially solve that question from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had another case where somebody was not allowed to marry somebody, midrabanan, and he went ahead and he married her, and we said that we do force him to divorce her, and that is the case where a woman had rumors about inappropriate behavior with another man, and she was divorced from her husband and went and married that man. She wasn't supposed to do it, and if there was said that he has to divorce her, the second man, the one who had the rumors with her, he's not allowed to stay with her. So there you see that if somebody marries against the will of the chachamim, he is forced to be divorced. The same should apply over here. So Gemara says these cases are very different. First of all, they're different because over there the Beis Din forced. The Mishnah says that the Beis Din forced the first husband to divorce her. That means that there was clear evidence that the rumors were true, and the second person, therefore, is the person who she did inappropriate behavior with, and that is known, and that's also deraisa. He's not allowed to be with her. That's why he would be forced to divorce her if he married her against the rules. Here, though, this is just because of a neder. This is just midrabanan. There's no reason. He wasn't forced to divorce her. He decided to divorce her because of the neder, because of these suspicions There's nothing forced here, and therefore he would be allowed to stay married with her if he remarried her. So the Gemara says that the one who brought the proof had a different girsa in our Mishnah, and his girsa in our Mishnah was not that she was forced to be divorced because of suspicions, but that she decided, her husband decided to divorce her because of these suspicions. Therefore, the two cases are the same in that regard. They're both that there were suspicions or that there was a neder, and the husband decided to divorce her. Of course, the cases are still different. In our case, the original husband remarried her. In that case, the other guy, the one who was the subject of those suspicions, he's the one who married her. So it's very different. Over there, he has to divorce her, and here he would not have to. So Gemara says, why should it make a difference? Either way, somebody married who is not allowed to marry her, and if he's allowed to stay, he's allowed to stay. Why should it be different? So Gemara says there's a very strong difference. Over here, the marriage shows that the suspicions were unfounded, because it shows that the fact that he went back shows that he wasn't worried about the vow, or it shows that he found out, he researched those suspicions and decided they were unfounded, and that's why he married his original wife. In those cases, though, the fact that the other guy went and married her, that strengthens the suspicions, because that shows that they really had a thing between them, and that's why they had the whole suspicions in the first place, and therefore that would make it seem even worse. More reason that they should be separate from each other. Okay, this concludes the Gemara's discussion of our Mishnah. Now we get to our next Mishnah, which discusses what is the halacha if some witnesses come and help free a woman from her husband. Are they allowed to marry her? So the first case, if somebody comes from Medina Siyam and he brings a get from her husband, from a woman's husband, and he has to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechdam. The rule is if somebody comes from overseas, from out of Eretz Yisrael, and he brings a get, he has to testify that it was written for this woman and signed for this woman, l'shma. So the halacha in the beginning of Maseches Gittin. So if somebody comes and he does that, he himself cannot marry her, because it looks suspicious that he may not be telling the truth, and he only said b'fanei nechdam because he wanted to marry her himself. Second case is if somebody comes and he testifies that the woman husband is dead in one of three ways. Either he says, I saw that he died for whatever reason, or he said that I killed him, or he said that we killed him. So here you have a machlokes. The Tanna Kama says, in all three cases, he can't marry the woman, but the implication is that other people could marry her. We believe him that he's dead, we believe him that the husband is dead, we just don't let this person marry her because then it would seem suspicious. Yehuda says, there's one exception to that, where he said, I killed him, there you can't trust him, because he's making himself into a murderer. You can't trust him when he says, I killed him, and therefore nobody, in the case where somebody comes and says, your husband is dead, I killed him, then he's not allowed to, not only is he not allowed to marry her, nobody's allowed to, because we don't believe him that he killed him, and therefore we don't believe him that the husband is dead at all. So the Gemara has a couple of questions here. The Gemara first of all asks, the implication over here is that it's only a problem if he comes from Medina Siyam, because then we rely on him to say b'fanei nechdam. That implies that if we wouldn't be relying on him to say b'fanei nechdam, he just brought the get and we don't need to trust him for anything, then it would be trustworthy and we'd be okay that he brought the get. We wouldn't have any suspicions here. So Gemara says, if that's true, then in the case where he comes and he says that your husband died, what's the problem? There we're not relying on him to say her husband died, because we have a principle in Shas. If a woman is told that her husband dies, she always does her own investigations and makes sure that it's true before she remarries. So it's really her investigations that we're relying on, not this person's testimony. So we're not relying solely on his word. So what should be the problem? We said that if he's coming from Eretz Yisrael, we're not relying on his word. She can remarry him, even to him. So if he says that her husband died, we're also not solely relying on his word. We're relying on her investigation, so she should be allowed to marry him. Somewhere says there's a difference. The difference is whether there's a get. The get is a document which supports his claim. In the case of Fanei Nechdam, since he has the get that supports it, it's more than just not relying on his word. If it's from Eretz Yisrael, it's not relying on his word and supported by the get, by the document. Case of the death, there's no paperwork, there's nothing to support it, and therefore we don't believe him, at least as far as allowing him to marry her, and we don't allow this person himself to marry this woman. Okay, now the Gemara goes to the case of where the witness came and he said, I killed him. So we saw as a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said we don't believe him, and the Rabbanan said we do believe him. So the Gemara says, according to the Rabbanan, how do you understand? Why would we believe him? The guy is making himself into a rasha by saying, I killed him. Now, if he's a Rasha, then he's Pasal Edus. He cannot be believed. So we see a very similar halacha quoted by Rav Yosef. It's actually Machlokas between Rav Yosef and Rava or Rabba. What is the halacha in a case where somebody's testimony includes information that makes him into a Rasha and therefore pasals him for testimony in the same phrase? So an example of that would be if somebody testifies about somebody else that he had homosexual intercourse, but he did it to this person who's the witness himself. So if he says that he did it against my will, so then the person who's testifying is not saying that he was involved in the act, so he doesn't make himself into a Rasha, so then he's believed. He's believed to say Eidus, and if there's another aid, then that testifies against the one who did the Isser, and he's Chayav Misa. If, however, this person who's saying Eidus says he did it willingly, so then his testimony includes his own rishus, his own fact that he's a Rasha. And if we're going to believe him, then when we are also believing that he's a Rasha, in which case we can't believe him. So then this entire testimony should be useless. We shouldn't be able to use him as an aid. So that's what Rav Yosef says. He says if somebody's testimony against someone else includes some information that makes him into a Rasha, the whole thing is batal because we can't believe him if it's true. Rabba, however, says no, we split. We don't believe him as far as himself. We say another Rasha, so as far as testifying that he himself is a Rasha, we don't believe him. But we do believe him as far as the fact that the other person violated what he says he violated. That part could be true. Even though it's the same activity, which either happened or didn't happen, we believe him as far as this is concerned, we don't believe him as far as that's concerned. So that's Machlokas Rav Yosef. So now the Gemara says it would seem to indicate, though, that Rav Yosef has to go like Rav Yehuda, because Rav Yosef is the one who says that we can't trust him if he makes himself into a Rasha, and therefore this woman shouldn't be allowed to marry anybody in the case where the man came and said, I killed him. We shouldn't believe that Edus, and therefore she shouldn't be allowed to marry anybody. That's Rav Yehuda's psak. So Rav Yosef seems to be stuck going like Rav Yehuda, who's a minority opinion. It's a kash on Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef will say, no, there's a difference. I only said my halacha in a case where it's not testimony about freeing a woman to marry. Freeing a woman to marry is an easier halacha. We have a lesser standard because we want to make it easier for women to remarry, and therefore we have a lesser standard and we'll accept it. Says the Gemara, but we have a statement of Rav Menashe. Rav Menashe says that we don't allow that even for testimony for a woman to remarry. We only allow somebody who's the thief, min rabbanan. Like, for example, if he's a gambler, which has a rabbanan status of being a thief, we don't allow him to testify usually, but for a woman to allow her to remarry, we will accept that edus. However, if somebody is making himself into a Rasha da'iraisa, that we do not accept for edus isha. So Rav Menashe then therefore would mess up Rav Yosef's trying to fit himself into the Rabbanan. He would, if you hold like Rav Menashe, Rav Yosef can't fit into the Rabbanan, because Rav Yosef would say that there is no, he would not be able to say that there's a leniency here, because Rav Menashe clearly says that the leniency doesn't apply to Rishas Deraisa. So Gemara says it's not really a problem. Rav Yosef will say Rav Menashe has to hold like Rav Yehuda. Rav Menashe, of course, agrees to me. Rav Menashe agrees to me that you have to cancel the edus. You have to assume that the edus that the person says that I killed him. You have to believe all of it at once. You have to believe that he is a Rasha, and therefore for edus isha, I could say not like Rav Menashe that he's believed, but Rav Menashe would say that he's not believed, and therefore Rav Menashe would have to fit like Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rav Menashe himself, though, wouldn't have a problem, because Rav Menashe could say I hold like Rabbah. Meaning Rav Menashe would say, if we really believe this person that he killed him, then we wouldn't trust him because he makes himself into a Rasha, and there's no special leniency for Edus Isha and a Rasha Deraisa, like I'm saying. But I hold like Rabbah that he's not believed to say he's a Rasha, he's only believed to say that the person is dead. We split the statement in half. And therefore Rav Yosef could say, I fit with the Chachamim and not like Rabbi Yehuda, but not according to Rav Menashe. Rav Menashe could say, I fit, but not according to Rav Yosef. The two of them together, though, definitely cannot fit into any opinion other than Rabbi Yehuda. Alright. Now the Gemara wants to know, the Mishnah had said that there's a machlokas of Yehuda and the Chachamim in the case where he said, I killed him. What about when he said, we killed him? What's the difference? I killed him, we killed him. Either way, he's a Rasha. Where it says, Rabbi Yehuda explains, we kill him doesn't mean that he was involved in the murder. We kill him just means I was in the group of people there that killed him. I didn't kill him myself, but I was there. I was part of the event, and I saw him. I saw the murder that was done by my chevra, but I, of course, didn't do it. So the Gemara says there's a kasha, though, because there's a brisa that says that they said to Rabbi Yehuda, and there was this, that when they said to Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah to try to show that a person is believed that there was a robber, there was some listim, a bandit, who was being taken out to be given the death penalty at the bridge over Kaputkia, and as he was being let out, he said to the people there, he said, "Tell Shimon ben Kohen's wife that I killed her husband at the entrance to Lud." And some say when he was entering Lud. Some say when I came to Lud, some say when he came to Lud. But based on this that he said, they married off his wife. So you see over here that even though the person himself was saying, I killed him, that he was trusted. So that's a kasha of Yehuda who says that he can't be remarried based on when he says, I killed him. That's a kasha of Yehuda in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda had responded that over there he didn't say, I killed him, he said, I was part of the group that killed him. Now, therefore, Rabbi Yehuda would say that fits with me. When it's part of the group, that's okay. So you see, therefore, the one that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to, the case that he agrees to is where he says, I was part of the group, but not where he says that I actually participated in the murder together with others. That would be just as much a problem. He says, but what do you mean he was part of the group? We said that the reason that he's being taken out to be killed is because he's a listim. Right? He is a bandit. Obviously, he was one of the murderers. He says, no. He was captured with a bunch of listim for being a robber, but not for this murder. But he was being killed. Obviously, he was given the death penalty because he killed somebody. The says, no, he was being killed by the goyim who weren't so careful in who they gave the death penalty and who they did not, but not necessarily was he involved in the murder, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't have a problem with this. Okay, that concludes this discussion on this Mishnah. Now we get to our next Mishnah. This Mishnah discusses a chacham who gives a heter for a woman to remarry. What is the halacha? So the Mishnah says it depends. If he's passing it by himself, it doesn't look ripe and proper if he himself marries her, because it looks like he had ulterior motives in his psak. However, if he's part of a group of three, then we don't have an issue. So let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if the chacham forbade a woman to stay married to her husband because of a neder, that's a woman made a neder that she's not going to have enough from her husband, and that obviously means she can't stay married to him, she has to get divorced. She came to the chacham for a heter, and he said, sorry, can't give you a heter. Based on that, she got divorced. He can't marry her because it was because of his psak that she left her husband. Now, if though he was part of a beis din that observed a miyun, where a katana walks out of a marriage, or if he was part of a chalitza, then any member of that beis din can, because since he's part of a beis din and doesn't look suspicious, a beis din is a group of three. It can be that all three of them are in cahoots to allow one of them to marry the woman that they're allowing to be remarried based on their psak. So the Gemara's kasha is that the implication here is that the chacham could have been matir the neder. She came to ask a neder of one chacham. That's what you're saying. She came to ask a neder of one chacham, and it was an individual, and he said no, and that's why she had to get divorced from her husband. The implication is that you can come to one chacham and ask for heter. The kasha is that you can't come to one chacham and ask for heter. One chacham can't give a heter. We said you need to have three. We have a brayso that says you need three chachamim to be matir neder. So says it's not a kasha. You need three hediotos, three regular people, or you need one who is a mumcha, one who's an expert. So it could be that this is referring to an expert, and that could have happened. Therefore, he could have given the psak, and therefore he could be sitting alone. Next, Gemara asks, you said that the only way that it's okay is if it's a beis din of three, but you don't need three people to do a chalitza or to do a miyun. We have a Mishnah that says if you have two witnesses signed on the sale of a field, or you have two witnesses that are testifying on the divorce of a woman, Chachamim are not afraid that they were involved in this sale, in the testimony of the sale or of the get, even though it didn't really happen, because they wanted to either buy the field themselves or to marry the woman themselves. We're not afraid of suspicious activity if there's only two people. You don't need three people to get out of suspicion. Two is enough. So why did this Mishnah say that the reason that it's okay is because you need three? Is because you have three. It's not because you have three. Even if there were two, it should be enough. So the Gemara says, you're right, two would be enough. The Mishnah is telling you a different halacha. It's telling you that three people are required for a miyun. That's the chiddush. That's why it says that there are three. Not because you need three to avoid suspicion, but you need three for every miyun. Okay, now the Gemara asks, what if in the case where he wasn't allowed to marry her, went ahead and he did marry her? Do we force him to divorce her or not? So the Gemara says, Machlokas Rav Kahana, who says yes, and Rav Ashi, who says no, he could stay married to her. The Gemara says, Rav Zuta of Rav Papi's yeshiva said, like the one who says he does not have to divorce her, that is like Rav Ashi. So So Gemara says it's Rabbanan Tzeta Rav Ashi. Do you know this from a tradition, from a Masorah, or is this your own logical claim? Are you saying this misvara? So he said to get it from the Mishnah. The Mishnah said in our previous Mishnah on the last daf that if somebody has suspicion upon him that he did improper behavior with a shifcha, and then the shifcha is freed, or from Nevedas Kechavim and then she converts, he's not allowed to marry her. But if he does not have to get divorced from her. So you see that just from the fact that somebody is involved in suspicious activity, we don't make him divorce. So here also, just because there's suspicious activity, would not be forced to divorce.